Hello and welcome to the third episode of Content Conversations. I am Akanksha Srivastav and I would like to thank our speakers, readers, and audience for all the appreciation they have showered upon us for the last two episodes. For those who have joined us for the first time, Content Conversation is a monthly live chat show which takes up a relevant topic every month in order to shape the future of content marketing in India. Today, we will discuss a very important topic, which is what brands must know about creating content around mental health. We have an expert panel consisting of thought leaders who actually walk the talk when it comes to creating content around such a topic, which is so sensitive. So they are the ones who actually understand the nitty gritty of it. Let me introduce our esteemed panelists. We have with us Smita Murarka, Chief Marketing Officer, Duroflex, Ruchika Varma, Chief Marketing Officer, Future Generali India Insurance, Piali Dasgupta, Senior Vice President, Marketing, Columbia Pacific Communities, and Anuj Gosalia, co-founder and CEO, Terribly Tiny Tales. Hello, everybody. Thanks for taking out time for us.
Hi, Akansha.
Hi, Akansha.
Hi.
Hi,
So,
Karan.
hi. So it's a topic which is very close to home for me. I really appreciate that many brands have started talking about mental well-being. But given the sensitivity of the topic, one really can't treat mental health as just another theme to create content around. It's not something that one day a brand wakes up and thinks of creating something emotional and then just shoots long form film, UGC challenge, or a social media film, or even a TikTok kind of a video on mental health. In fact, a lot of times they also use terms which are so serious like depression and anxiety quite loosely. But instead, it has to be curated with a very proper long term plan, well executed content strategy, and keeping oneself in the shoes of the consumers who really need such support. In fact, these are the times when more and more brands should come forward to help consumers fight mental distress caused by the second wave of COVID. Well, I'm not an expert on a topic like depression and anxiety, but I definitely understand what it means to feel low, negative, and let down. So, if brands just start relevant and wide reaching conversations to grow awareness around mental well being, they could actually make a dent in the social handling of the issue and, of course, be remembered as change makers by consumers. So, I would like to now begin the discussion by asking a very important question to Ruchika. Ruchika, why should the brands be advocating for mental well-being? And would you agree that we are seeing more and more brands open to join the league, unlike before?
So, Akansha, India today has a large unaddressed mental health issue. WHO 5 years ago said that 9 million Indians suffer from some kind of mental health issue. In fact, by 2020, this number was one fifth, 20% of India. COVID-19 only made it worse because of social disconnections, because of people worried about their health, about losing their jobs, and just the new normal, the new way of working. The second wave, has of course enhanced the grief burden. It's been a crippling second wave. A lot of us, know people who have lost loved ones, and it's very very clear that cases of insomnia, panic attacks, anxiety have actually been increasing. In fact, WHO says that by 2030, mental health is going to be the topmost illness in the world. So it's impacting not only India, but it's something which is impacting the entire world. However, in spite of these staggering statistics that I just spoke about, mental health still remains a taboo topic in India. A lot of people, don't believe that they have issues. Even if they believe, they don't go out and seek help. And uh, sadly, even those who do go out and seek help sometimes don't get the support of their friends and family. Now, it's no secret that this is a huge issue facing India today. In fact, a latest report, the FIAMA, health wellness report, said that 77% of Indians actually believe that there is not enough conversation or initiatives around mental health. Now, I think what's happening is that purpose-led brands have understood the cultural context that India is facing today. and they are trying to bridge the gap by undertaking, multiple initiatives and creating awareness and education around the topic. And I really believe that the more of us who stand up and rally around this, the better it is in terms of creating an impact on India.
Sure, sure. So, so are you seeing many brands taking up this cause?
Yeah, absolutely. There have been brands who've done, a good job. There have been brands like Mirinda. There've been brands like, like Times Network. There've been multiple brands that have done that. Not enough, but the conversations have started.
Okay, sure. Smita, my next question is to you that what are the mistakes that brands make while choosing this cause to engage with the consumers?
Yeah, Akansha, as Ruchika mentioned, purpose-led brands, right? That's the word really. Um, I think brands sometimes get very mindless, and especially in today's era of social media marketing, where this term moment marketing has probably struck everyone. A lot of brands are getting lost in that. For us at Duroflex, we are a very purpose-led brand. Our purpose is to really drive the importance and the awareness, the knowledge about sleep and how it impacts health and general well-being, right? It's like the pillar of well-being. This conversation obviously accelerated a lot during COVID 2020 onwards, and we've kept at it. We've really driven it, doubled down on it. And that's the important part, that everything you do should be around the core pillar of the purpose you are standing for. So for us, sleep being the purpose, mental health and mental well-being is a very important relation to how good you sleep, or vice versa, right? If you have poor mental health, it's a function of poor sleep, or if you don't sleep properly, you will most likely be impacted by poor mental health. So it really comes into the foray of what we are trying to do in building awareness of sleep. And that's the whole reason why, in a time like this, in a crisis like this, when a lot of brands need to really talk about this topic, for us it fits in. It is very organic extension of what we've been talking about. The mistakes that brands do is just fit in because everybody is talking about it. So even if you're doing that, you still need to have a stance which is very clearly calling out what is the reason why you are talking about this topic. It's not just about sharing information or just being a platform for talking about the in topics. So mental health surely should not become a topic where people look at statistics and say, oh, this topic is going to get me great engagement, right? Because people are not coming to your brand and engaging with your brand because you talk about everything and anything under the sun. You stand for something. Yes, of course, when there's a global crisis on this, and it is really escalating things like mental health, there is a need where a lot of non-related brands also can come together and take a stand, but then that should be very clearly defined. So probably just not do mindless exchange of information around this sensitive topic would be something that I would like to call out for brands.
Sure. In fact, my next question is somewhat related to what you said is to Piali. It is seen that we generally tend to use terms like depression and anxiety very loosely. In fact, I talked about it in my intro as well. While these are like literally clinical conditions. So, given the fact that brands have the power to influence consumers and educate them about mental health, so what kind of homework should be done by brands before they take this route?
So, Ruchika, I think, it's a great question. I'm glad you asked me this question. I think there are two things that happen when brands use these words very loosely, right? The first, obviously, is the fact that, the brand then appears extremely ignorant, which you don't want to do at a day and a time like this, because you will be called out on social media and otherwise, and rightfully so. And I think the second very important thing that happens when you use these words loosely is you alienate a large number of people like myself who actually suffer from these illnesses, right? Because then what you're sort of telling somebody with clinical depression or anxiety, somebody like me, is that it is in no way different to sadness. When you when you look at clinical conditions, and I can tell you this because I mean, I've lived with this condition for over 2 decades. I mean, there is a certain process, right? I mean, a clinical condition like depression is very different to sadness, because sadness is specific, depression is vague, right? There is no real reason why you may feel depressed, whereas sadness is related to maybe something that has happened to you that's caused you that emotion. And you have to look at a large number of symptoms that then lead you to kind of go to a doctor. The doctor then asks you questions about 8 to 9 different symptoms that you would have kind of lived with for at least a period of 6 weeks or more, and then you get diagnosed with a clinical condition like a depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, whatever the disease might be. Now, obviously, when you're a brand manager that perhaps, let's say, doesn't have the disease, or when you're somebody on the agency side that is probably not aware of the technicalities of it, you may not really understand it that well. But that doesn't mean that you kind of give in to ignorance. I think in today's day and age, it just takes 10 minutes of your time. Go to YouTube, watch a video which clearly differentiates between sadness and depression, or for example, feeling low and being depressed, or feeling overwhelmed and being anxious, right? Or feeling a sense of hopelessness and being depressed, or feeling a sense of um, despair and being depressed. And the reason I'm using all of these words is because there is a difference. And all you just need to do is maybe just equip yourself with the knowledge that you need, which is just literally a click away on YouTube, watch a video, understand the difference, and then be aware. I would urge brand managers, I would urge brand custodians to be extremely vigilant about these things, because I think that when you loosely sort of use these words, and you use these words interchangeably, you're doing a great disservice to a cause which is already kind of underserved in this country for sure, and which is already something that's mired in all sorts of stigma, shame, all kinds of things. So there are already a lot of issues when it comes to mental illness in this country, across the world. And I mean, by sort of not knowing how to rightly communicate it, I mean, it's a communication problem at the end of the day. I think we're just making things worse. I hope that answers your question, Akansha.
Absolutely. So I think by your answer, I've got another idea. Whenever a brand comes up with something on mental well-being, they can even consult or like show the show the content to some psychiatrist or some psychologist who can suggest them that who can suggest them that they're not being insensitive in their content and know exactly what terms they're using.
Yeah, so we actually did that. I mean, at Columbia Pacific, very recently, we did a campaign called Reach Out, which was in association with Fortis Hospital. And we tied up with the Fortis Mental Health Wing. And we were constantly in touch with the head of department there who guided us throughout. And it is really about walking the talk, as opposed to, doing something which could be potentially seen as something that's quite careless.
So I don't think so many brands will treading this way now, because it's not easy. It's not just like any other topic that you pick up. Mental health is
Yeah, it's not. It's not.
sure. So my next question is to Anuj. Anuj is the only one here who represents the platform side. So my question is kind of customized to that. What is the kind of quality of engagement you see on your platform when brands associate with content around mental well-being in comparison to other kinds of content themes?
Akanksha, thank you for the question. I think it's a very meaningful session. Um, Also to be able to learn from brands themselves and custodians of brands is useful for us. We've seen so a couple of things, right? One is that as a storytelling platform, we are obviously no authorities on mental health, but we want to be open and uh, safe enough for our writers and our community to be able to vocalize their, and the mental health, I believe, is a spectrum, right? So that from isolation, loneliness, and many other feelings that I think now everyone is grappling with, to stuff that is, that requires clinical supervision. We try and address both this entire spectrum. The first one being more a place for expression, which is can a young writer or can a young person, 18-year-old from Ahmedabad, write to Terribly Tiny Tales and say, hey, look, I was supposed to be in college right now with friends and having a great time learning, being in the company of people, and here suddenly I'm possibly in a toxic home environment and still having to show up to class every day, and I don't feel great about this. And is there a place that can hear me and listen to my story? And we hope to be that place for young people in India. And so we kind of get lots and lots of stories that sit in this space where uh, it's just, it's just a safe space. And that's the first thing that we want to solve for as a storytelling company, which is, can we be safe for people to pour out? And that's the place I think a lot of brands can, I think, come in, because like Piali rightly mentioned and spoke about, everything else is harder. Not that brands should not go there, but right now, even the first step, which is to come and say, hey, look, if you want to talk about hope, optimism, if you want to talk about safety, can brands even power those things? Because brands are shy to even come there. Um, uh, and rightfully so. I think there's fear of being tone deaf, there's fear of being called out. I think one small thing can explode on social media today. And so what we do as TTT is just come in and say, hold the brand and say, hey, look, we know what our community resonates with, what they care about, what are the topics that you know that they would respect if a brand powered. And that's how we're kind of including brands in terms of engagement. I think anything that a brand does today, see, it's also the paradox of our times, right now brands aren't hyperactive on social media. There's kind of clustered lockdowns across the country, so lots and lots of people are on their phones, on social media. So any brand that does come in today will get great engagement, they will get great viewership, but there's the challenge of being mindful, of being safe, of not being tone deaf. But I think if brands can, uh, be wise enough and be thoughtful enough, I think this is a very meaningful time to speak about so many things. And if brands have the money, they should, even come across as stronger, more purposeful brands. Look, this is the gravest time that possibly I hope we'd see in our lives. And if brands don't show up, then it's also a bit sad. So, yeah.
Sure. I asked this question because I wanted to understand that how willing are people to watch such content which is sensitive, very emotional, serious, in comparison to other form of content which is light-hearted and funny and entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, if I can take the permission of the panel, I have like 5 minutes and five tiny stories to share. Which, and even for the audience, if we could take 2 minutes, or if you want to come back, Akansha, I'm happy to show it at the end to whatever you recommend. Just to give you a sense of the kinds of tones we speak in, and it doesn't have to be serious. It doesn't have to be disengaging. It doesn't have to be public service announcements. They need to just be honest and resonating.
Sure, you can show it right now.
Okay, it's everything's ready. I'm just gonna dive into it. Everyone can see my screen.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah. Okay, so this is something we did with Empower, right? So she slept through my birthday, forgot to wish me, fought with me. Tonight she breaks down. I hold her. It's never too late to celebrate. Just again a feeling of vulnerability and sort of pouring out, so meaningful in these times. This is something that Cadbury Dairy Milk Silk powered, which is on cyberbullying. Again, falls in the spectrum of mental health, not talked about enough. It's called the Purple Heart campaign. So, oh my God, you're so ugly. And you get so many of these comments, and then all you do is leave a purple heart when someone shares something vulnerable, and it changes the day and the moment for that person. So that was one. Then something we did with Spectra. you're so sensitive is often just another way of saying you have such low tolerance for who I am as a person. So just these simple messages powered by a brand that make, you know, people feel safer. This again by Dairy Milk. For every troll comment on someone's post, she wrote something nice. That trolling was a choice, her kindness too. This with Tinder. So again, the spectrum of brands, right? So again, this is in the expression space. Bedroom is equal to office, no commute anymore. But every night, the phone call with you feels like coming home after a long, dull day. So these are so many. There's so many spaces, and there's so many spaces where brands can come and make their presence felt. This is with the Live, Love, Laugh Foundation. And this, of course, is monitored by mental health professionals. So a buzzing note sound interrupted his suicide note, mom calling. As one problem led to another solution, the paper self-destructed. So each time we go into these zones, they're obviously, you know, vetted by mental health experts. And yeah, that's, I mean, I just wanted to give a quick flavor of, you know, the spectrum and the kind of stories we're able to tell.
I have been the fan of Terribly Tiny Tales short stories since long now. In fact, since the time the platform was launched, I will have been following the platform. So it's amazing. I don't think so. In fact, a lot of people have now started copying TTT. So coming back to Ruchika now, we have been discussing this now. Anuj has talked about it and Piali has talked about it. It is definitely a very serious and sensitive topic to pick. But can such content be equally entertaining and hooks the consumer until the end?
So, there is a lot of data about mental health, right? But as marketeers, as people who manage brands, we know that we need to change behavior when it comes to mental health. And data doesn't change behavior, emotions do. And because this is such a serious topic, one usually goes down a very serious emotional route as far as content is concerned. Now, some brands have done that and they've done it very well. In fact, I spoke about some of the brands, also in my previous answer, where I spoke about, Mirinda released the pressure, Deepika Padukone video, Prega News talking about, postpartum depression, etc. So there are a few brands out there who have used this emotional connect. But, emotional connect doesn't really only have to be created through very strong, serious emotions. There are other emotional codes that can also create a connect. Humor, for example, right? I truly believe that if you talk about a serious topic seriously, you are going to lose your audience very, very quickly, right? So for content around mental health to make that conversation mainstream, the content has to be relatable, it has to be palatable, it has to be engaging, and not patronizing or serious, right? So this is something that we had done. We had looked at a very simple narrative, a very humorous narrative when we were approaching mental health from Future Generali's perspective, right? Our insight for our recent campaign that we had run, which was the Inanimate Objects campaign from the Health Inside Out campaign that we had done, when we spoke to mental health experts and we spoke to people who are suffering from mental health issues, we realized that the first infliction of mental health issue actually happens on inanimate objects. It is the extra squeezing of a stress ball. It is, the throwing of things in anger. The chewing of a pen cap in anxiety, right? Those are the starting signs of mental health issues, which often go ignored and then become deeper. So we set out to try and create awareness around that. Now, we could have very easily taken a very serious, very dramatic kind of a route, but we chose not to do that. We chose a very simple, humorous narrative where these inanimate objects were actually heroes, who spoke about mental illness from their perspective. And what we realized was that, this light narrative with a penny drop moment really helped us. See, good storytelling is about inspiring, it's about engaging, and it's about educating the audience, right? And any content needs to be able to do this. And with this campaign, we had endeavored to do all three without taking away from the significance of the message. And I think that strategy really, really worked for us. We got a tremendous response to the campaign. So, to the answer to your question really is that, is it possible to do? Yes, it is possible to do. It is difficult, but it's possible. But I truly believe that it must be done because that's the only way to really hook your audience and get the conversation mainstream.
Can we also take the comedy route then?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, we have to be very mindful about how that plays out because at the end of the day, the message is serious. You can take a non serious tonality to be able to deliver the message, right? You can't take away from the seriousness of the message. But absolutely, and that's what we attempted to do. We had to walk that fine balance between humor and the seriousness of the message.
Mhm. Sure. Uh, Piali, we all know that using celebrities and macro influencers can amplify the reach of a campaign and make it look larger than life. But how can one make such content more relatable and realistic without using macro influencers and celebrities?
So I'm going to give you three examples of how brands have been very successfully been able to do that, right, without the use of any celebrities. But before that, I just want to take a minute to congratulate Ruchika on the campaign that she just mentioned. It's one of my personal favorites. I think it was just such a brilliant campaign. So I think going back to your question. So the first one, which is my favorite, was the one that was done very recently on National Mental Health Awareness Day, which was on the 10th of October. It was the front page ad on the Hindu, and it was an ad that the Hindu did it. It was Hindu's ad essentially, and um, I think if I remember correctly, it was by Ogilvy, and it was an entirely copy-led ad. I mean, the long form kind of copy that we have almost forgotten about, but the magic that it can create, I think, is just so palpable. And it was an ad called Smile, and I think it went on to win many awards, but that's hardly the point. The point is that it talked about what a smile really is. The smile is an expression of happiness, it's an expression of joy, it's an expression of success. Maybe when you get a promotion, you smile. When your mom cooks you a great meal, you smile. But actually, for a lot of people that live with depression, for example, or any other mental illness, smile is actually um, not any of that at all. It's a cover, right? It's a mask that we wear. It's letting the world know that I'm fine when I'm not fine at all. Because we don't want to attract that attention to ourselves, and all of that. So it was a brilliant ad, and I mean, no celebrities, no image at all. It was just long form copy, right? So that was that's the first example that I want to take. The second one is something that Prega News did, I think about 2 to 3 years back, if I remember correctly. It was an ad on postpartum depression, which very few brands actually talk about. And obviously, Prega News being the brand that it was very much within its space to talk about it. But what a beautiful ad! I mean, I don't know if all of you have seen it, but it was just so relatable. It was about this woman professional, a woman leader who's probably just given birth, and she was kind of going through postpartum depression, and how the team that she works with, and colleagues, and her bosses, and everybody else, the entire ecosystem that she's kind of surrounded by, how that ecosystem kind of came together to support her while she was sort of navigating postpartum depression. I mean, I know a lot of women that have gone through postpartum depression. It is a reality, and I think to sort of make that part of mainstream advertising, I think was very, very brave. And again, no celebrities at all. So I think it's really about picking real life stories, relatable stories, but also kind of ensuring that it's got a larger appeal, right? And it's really not about getting a celebrity. The third example that I want to give you is actually oh, I don't know why I suddenly blanked out, but there was a third one. But I think that, I think the point that I'm making, oh, right, yeah. So it was actually the um, campaign that Deepika did for Live Laugh Laugh. There was one campaign which was called Dobara Pucho, which was basically about asking people the second time if they're doing fine, which I think, if I remember correctly, did feature her. But there was another one called I Am Not Ashamed, and it was largely an outdoor driven campaign where she actually used real life survivors of mental illness who kind of came out to say that, I'm not ashamed because this is something that I don't control and I have nothing to kind of be ashamed of. And I thought that that was a very, very brave attempt because that's exactly the issue that we're trying to fight. So I think determining the issue, kind of, attacking it head on, making the narrative very, very relatable for the average man or woman to be able to kind of relate to. Sometimes, like Ruchika mentioned, use of humor is great. I mean, a lot of us who actually suffer from the illness are very, very tired of hearing inane things like, oh, just go for a drink and you'll feel better, or go for a run and you'll feel better. Oh, what have you got to be depressed about? You've got everything going for you. So these are fairly stupid things to kind of tell people that are living with an illness as debilitating as this. And I think if you're going to be able to use humor to sort of build all of these situations that people with mental illness kind of face all the time, then I think, you've got a winner in terms of having a content piece.
Sure. In fact, there was a phase when I was also not keeping well, and somebody came and told me that Gayatri Mantra bola karo, sab theek ho jayega. So these are the
Yeah,
things.
there are many variations of that. I mean, yeah,
I'm
and
not
it's
negating that Gayatri Mantra is useless, but still, it's a clinical condition. It should be treated by doctors.
yeah, and I think what's interesting is that it's not about how educated the person is. It's just about somebody being completely ignorant. So I think, yeah.
Yeah, the conversation has got quite serious. So, Smita, asking you a very marketing led question now. There is a constant pressure on marketers to fulfill business objectives through every marketing activity they undertake. So, can a brand fetch immediate and long term business goals through such content as well, or it can only be used like a brand building and engagement exercise?
So firstly, I'm so glad I'm part of this panel, and kudos to your Kansha for putting such a diverse group together. Honestly, I'm getting to learn a lot and getting to hear a lot of live examples and the sensitivity of this. So definitely a lot of learning for me as well. Coming to your point of marketing this, that's precisely the point that I made earlier. Also, you have to be a purpose-led brand to latch onto topics like this because, like everybody mentioned, this cannot be just a frivolous moment marketing or just a marketing to gain some eyeballs or conversion-driven campaigns. It's none of that. It also is not something you can use words loosely and just put it out there. Again, like everybody mentioned, it is something very scientific, very clinical. It relates to a lot of people at the same time, unrelates to a lot of people. So if you're not anywhere remotely related to this business, and it's not your purpose either, then stay away from it. I really don't think marketers. Also, coming back to the point that marketing is not selling only, right? There is a difference, and there should be a difference. And probably any brand that doesn't know this difference is where really they kind of drive everything to a business objective or final P&L accountability. A lot of larger brands, purpose-led brands, do differentiate the two, and there is long-term purpose. Again, we can give an example of what the category and the business that I belong to, which is evangelizing sleep. Just like mental health, sleep is also something which is considered a very frivolous topic in our country, and we kind of almost wear it as a badge of honor of not sleeping, right? Being part of the rat race. Oh, I've burned the midnight oil and I haven't slept, and that's something to be very proud of. But what it does, it leads probably to medical conditions of anxiety, mental health. conditions and vice versa. So we can take a stance in it. We do belong to the forum where we can have a point of view around this to some extent. Wherever we don't, we do invite a lot of experts around it. So for example, now COVID has caused a lot of anxiety even amongst the younger generation, which probably didn't have to this extent pre-COVID. So we've got doctors on board, and we are giving away free consultations on how sleep is impacting a lot of your mental health as well. If it's not a long drawn situation that you're already part of, and it's a anxiety that you've just built, most likely sleep also could be one of the main factors. So because of that, we've tied up with doctors, sleep experts who are driving this. So it's something that you need to really take responsibility for as a brand. A brand is something that's trusted, that everybody is watching with a lot of micro measurement, right? So every word you say, it's like the non-human version of a celebrity. Every word that you're going to say is going to be dissected by everybody who's listening to you. So just just thinking that everything that you're going to say is finally going to help you sell, it's not the case, because at the end of it also your products need to speak for itself. You should also make products that finally have an end use and is marrying. So it's a lot of marketing, and brand building is a lot of related things. You cannot look at it in isolation. You cannot look at it just for the purpose of selling. And that's why probably these roles and functions are kind of separated, so that as a marketer, your vision is also to have a long term perspective on the purpose that you're taking. So I would again urge brand marketers not to dwell in this if it's a very short term. It's not worth it basically for your business as well. If it's something very short term, this is not the topic. There are a lot of other topics that are probably far more engaging, far more interesting to go after. So err on the side of responsibility, and yeah, choose it only if it's without the business sense. As an example that I can talk about is when last year the whole lockdown started, and the prime minister announced the first lockdown, and we really didn't know what we were in as a country, or what this COVID was all about. As early as that, we went on television, we invested on television, we invested on social media, and we knew we had zero business sense to it, but we went out with communication which spoke about how sleep builds immunity. So we had the hashtag sleep for immunity, and we just kept talking about that for 3 months. We didn't have any sales, we just spoke about it. So it was completely without any business outcomes or commercial gains. And we've not regretted that at all. Of course, it's added back to finally people believing in and trusting in us. But as a business owners or even leaders beyond marketing, you guys, everybody should come together and know that this is something you're invested in. uh, that's something that you won't give up if the situation demands, and make sure you're there without any business sense as well.
So what you just said, Smita, no, the house is always divided. There are a few people who always say that any marketing activity should be directly linked to the business. In fact, when I joined A&M Media, there was some very senior marketing consultant who criticized the very famous Tanishq ad, which was about a divorcee getting remarried, and he said, "Ki, what did the brand get out of it? They did not get they did not get any sales, and only the ad went viral. What did they get out of it? It's a very bad strategy." So I keep on hearing these conversations. So the house is always divided.
Sure. So it's also about how you're articulating what business you're in. Even if you have to say that, okay, is this your business? Business does not mean numbers only, right? So it's about articulating for yourself and for others around you what business you're in. For us, we are in the business of sleep and providing sleep solutions, right? So that gives a possibility for us to talk about a lot of things. We are also able to identify what are the products that consumers need, because to help them sleep better. And that's why we've gone beyond mattresses. We've gone to a lot of other categories, to help solve this. So if you've articulated your business around a purpose, you will be able to answer these questions or not even say things like this. But obviously, if the articulation itself is just very number driven, then that's all your marketers will do. So yeah, marketing is not a function which is tactical and short term. It is, I wouldn't like to call it only marketing. It is brand building. It is long term, and it is essentially the face and the purpose that you're there to exist. And I think COVID also outplayed this very well. Brands which stayed there. One of the things that Anuj said very well is, you cannot be absent, you cannot be ignorant, you cannot be just somebody who's there to make quick bucks, and when the whole world is bleeding you just disappear, and even brands cannot do that. So if you've been talking about a cause, and when the world needs it the most, and you have knowledge about it, or you can pool in resources to talk about it, you suddenly disappear, then obviously this is something that people will remember. So I think brands who didn't understand that and thought that this is something that's just not business sense to be around and be caring and empathetic, really got the brunt of it, and the numbers speak for themselves. So it all ties back at the end of it. Of course, if you make great products and if your story is consistent, the numbers also tie back. But if you look at it as an individual piece, then consumers are not fools anymore, and social media is as open as it is unforgiving. So yeah, we should really be cognizant of that. And as individuals, I think one of the things that I'd really like to tell everybody who's listening right now, as marketers, I think we are really the change makers in the world of marketing. So be sure that you need to take a stance, however difficult it is, or change if it's not matching to your. But be very high on your moral values or ethics. Or it might sound difficult and a little preachy, but it is possible. So choose also brands and venues which you relate to, and which are very honest, because then only you'll think of ideas which are very honest and can connect very well. Like Piali said, she can today talk a lot about mental health because she herself is facing it, and it's so much more honest. So similarly, I think if you're in a relationship, as in if you're working for a brand where you want to go behind a purpose and the brand is going behind a different direction, then definitely that relationship is not something that's long lasting. So yeah, as marketers, as brands, as humans, I think all of us definitely need to think, have a vision for ourselves and our brands, and be very clear where do we want to steer it. It cannot come on the back of numbers alone.
Sure, sure. So, Anuj, my next question is to you. That everybody wants visibility, shareability, and they want their content to just stand out in the clutter. Do you have any tips to share that how can such content actually stand out in the n number of case studies and examples that coming up around mental health by brands?
I think everyone correctly identified that. So there are two, three parts to this question, right? Which is one is a function of timing, which is, are you speaking today or in these times? Then anything that you do sensitively, meaningfully, um, has a much higher probability of standing out, because just so many brands are shy to or cautious to take a stance. So, and there is a lot of viewership right now. So there is that white space, like I previously spoke about. So one is just the act of showing up will give you an opportunity, just probabilistically, to be more top of mind than ever before on these issues. So you're, even if your content is not top of the chart, or it's the best produced film or award winning, just the fact that you've shown up gives you a much higher chance of being spoken about today. So that is one. Second is, of course, I mean, we speak to 20 million young people every week across India. And so we know that, there's this whole culture of, you know, kind of dark humor. There's a culture of being ironically accepting of the fact that these are hard times. So I think even if a brand, again, in the right creative hands, if they spoke about this with, like we identified, with humor, um, to just make this more engaging, more shareable, there is an opportunity there too. But we've erred on the side of just being sensitive, relatable, light, and like how you would with friends, right? If one of your friends was going through a hard time, all conversations aren't serious. They're sometimes peppered with kind humor, and you could not make a joke about it, but you could speak about it in a way that is not hurtful. And so I think if you speak a language that is human, I think that is enough today. You don't have to try for the most ingenious idea, take that chance of being called out, of falling flat. Um, so just we are trying to build out a property called How Are You. So every story will start with just different people across the country picking up phone calls, video calls, and just checking in their own languages, saying how are you, like kem cho, kaise ho aap, and so different age groups, different combinations. Just that small act of people checking in can make for such meaningful stories. Just call an old friend you haven't spoken to and say how are you, and it'll unfold a short 3-minute beautiful story of catching up, of maybe loss, of calming, of just recognizing the fact that we're all alone but together. So yeah, I think relatable, not very serious, honest human stories is, if I had to just give like a framework, I think I would go down this route to just up the odds of connecting with people.
Sure. Okay. That summarizes everything that how should brands actually create content which stands out. So Ruchika, my next question is to you, that I see several brands creating content on the topic around Mental Health Day. And I know it's topical and brands tend to engage with the audience when there's some occasion. But don't you think that topic like these should be undertaken by brands only if they wish to do something in the long run and stick to it? And they can't just create one initiative for once, launch a long film, make it viral, and just let it be. Shouldn't be a long term thing, because I know it isn't something that's fashionable and trendy. What's your opinion here?
So, Akansha, I really believe that honestly, the mental health issue in India is such a large issue that every single piece of content really helps in creating awareness, in educating, and in spurring action. And there might be a lot of brands out there where there might be a category connect, but mental health is not really part of their purpose, and therefore they don't make it a long term strategy for themselves, but they still want to partake in these conversations. And my opinion is that there is nothing wrong with that, right? Even if it is topical, even if it is short term, fine, be part of the conversation, because this conversation is huge. It's a huge problem. And the more people that come together to rally, the more brands that come together to rally, even if it's just a single piece of content, is not bad. And on the other hand, that there are brands like Future Generali, right? I can speak of what we do. For us, mental health is a long term brand pivot for us, because there is a very strong category connect, there's a very strong brand connect, right? So for a very long time, insurance brands, especially health insurance brands, have been talking about physical health. You have to take, you have to do blood work, and given your medical reports to even get insurance today, right? You need to, a lot of brands give you some loyalty points if you continue to be physically healthy. Do 10,000 steps, things like that, which give you a premium off on your renewal, right? So there are a lot of conversations around physical health when it comes to brands in this space. However, we believe that total health is both physical and mental, and that's why health inside out, right? And we believe that there are not enough conversations around mental health, and that's what we want to spark, and we want to make this conversation mainstream. So there's a very strong category connect, right? From a brand connect, our purpose is really to be a lifetime partner for our customers and lead with empathy and with human touch. And therefore, mental health fits in beautifully with us trying to deliver these values and this brand purpose. So for brands like us, it makes a lot of sense to make this into a strategic pillar that we keep building. And we have done that. We've launched products which focus on mental health. We have done multiple initiatives, including not just content, but we have created tools where you can check your mental wellness. It's an API based tool, a questionnaire based tool, which is available on our website, on our app. We have roped in celebrities who have spoken about this. We have created different kinds of content. We have created video content, which was inanimate objects. We've created, talk shows where we have gotten in sports celebrities to talk about their own struggles with mental illness. So our strategy is really to continue doing multiple things to be able to create awareness around this issue. So for brands like us, it starts to make a lot of sense. But having said that, the reality is that if given how large and unaddressed this problem is in India, I think every little bit helps. And the more brands that rally around this, the more awareness, the more education, and the more impact on society.
So it's okay that if a brand just creates a campaign only on World Mental Health Day.
So I think it's fine as long as it's meaningful, as long as it's there is a category connect, as long as the brand feels that this is something that will aid towards their overall purpose. It may not be their full purpose, but it might be something that aids towards that. Absolutely, you can have a one-off conversation and be part of it. I think every bit helps.
Okay, sure. Smita, my next question is to you that I see whatever content that happens on this topic is mostly on social media. I have hardly seen campaigns done on other platforms like TV, print, radio, and nowadays podcasts and OTT are also there. So, what could be the possible reason about around it?
Um, Again, going back to your earlier question, maybe it's not business outcome enough for a lot of brands. But what we try to do, and that's why I'm here, part of this is participate in meaningful conversations, even as individuals, as representatives of the brand. As Ruchika said, rally around the cause as much as you can so that the overall awareness increases. Um, if you look at mediums as again dividing, OTV gives me reach and digital gives me engagement, and while that is great to draw up your marketing calendar, but that one purpose or that one conversation that you really want to do throughout should be medium free. You should do it at any given opportunity, even if it is just putting up a simple poster of awareness in your store. So really, it's totally the choice of the marketer and the brand on how much they can utilize. Again, Piali's example of talking about a smack on a newspaper, I'm sure was quite powerful. So it's how creative you can get, how much you want to rally behind the cause, how much you want to invest behind it in terms of time and money. Having said that, today social media is the most powerful tool because you can replicate your conversations, you can create the engagement of your choice, you can create the audience of your choice. You can do so much with social media, and it's an everyday effort that you can make. So definitely for us also today, social media has a very meaningful role in our brand building activities. In fact. A lot of post COVID, during COVID 2020 onwards, largely was driven by social media. So we have a lot of respect for the medium. Of course, like every other thing, it's how you use it. There are two sides of the coin. But social media can really get you the volume of people quite easily if you use it in the right way. So definitely, social media is a very easily available, democratic, powerful tool, and providers, platforms like Terribly Tiny Tales. There are many kind of service providers or platforms, conversationalists. There's so many kinds of people out there, and you can really liaison with a variety of people to talk about it versus any other platform. So today, if I want to talk about sleep, I can go to a platform like TTT. I can go to sleep experts, I can go to influencers, and I can have my own campaign all at the same time. So definitely, I'm a big advocate of how to use social media for brand building. Having said that, nothing should stop you, to even have conversations on bigger platforms. Like I said, we ran Sleep for Immunity TV campaigns, which didn't have any product or any sale messaging for whole of last year and even continue to do so. So it's totally the brand's choice on where they want to invest their efforts. Honestly.
Wow. Your answers are so persuasive always. Coming to Piali now, can brands across categories associate with content around mental health, or and also how can one ensure relatability of mental health with a brand when they take that path?
Yeah, so I think Akansha, this is a bit of a trick question. I mean, the jury is obviously out on, like, on one hand, you heard Ruchika say that every bit counts, right? And on the other hand, you heard Smita say that, unless it's a long-term investment for you, do you really want to do it? I mean, does it make business sense for you? And I think that there is no right or wrong answer. But having said that, I mean, I'm just thinking to myself that if you're like a toothpaste brand, for instance, I mean, do you want to talk about mental health really, right? Is there a connect, right? And at the same time, we have seen a Mirinda, for example, very beautifully sort of weave in. I mean, if you saw the Release the Pressure campaign, which I think Ruchika also mentioned earlier, which was in association with Fortis Healthcare. I mean, Mirinda is a youth brand, and it sort of talks about, I mean, that particular campaign spoke about the exam pressure that, a lot of youth in our country kind of face. And it can actually be, quite debilitating because, suicide rates and all of that get reported prior to exams or even post exam before the results come out are absolutely staggering. So I think, it really depends on how you're skillfully being able to build that narrative, so that it becomes second skin to the brand, right? I mean, the brand is central to what you want to talk about. In our case, because we are a senior care brand and our brand purpose is positive aging, and it is really about, helping seniors live healthier, better lives for longer. And when you talk about wholesome wellness and well-being, you can't not talk about mental health, right? It's a very, very important part of well-being, and therefore we continue to talk about mental health. And while yes, we would, like every other brand, do a World Mental Health Day awareness campaign. In fact, it was a campaign that was received very well, where we actually dropped the eyes of all all mental health disorders that actually coincidentally have eyes in their spelling. And we said that we wanted to drop the eye to catch your eye, and then kind of talk about the data, which is 20% of India's senior citizens actually suffer from at least one form of mental health disorder, right? But we actually followed it up with sustained activities that we do at our communities for seniors, to help them feel mentally more stable. We have helplines that people can reach out to, and very recently we've done a campaign, like I said, Reach Out, which was really about encouraging senior citizens in the midst of the second pandemic, which has been absolutely devastating, for particularly for senior citizens who are feeling isolated, lonely, and they're not able to cope with this situation at all, to actually reach out for help in case they're feeling overwhelmed. Now, with brands, I mean, when you, for example, I was just looking at data, uh, and I think some of the data Ruchika mentioned in the beginning of the talk. We started with about 7.5% of our population being mentally ill. This year, it is going to be as high as 20%, right? Of the entire population in India, which will end up having one form of mental illness or the other. And obviously, a lot of it has got to do with the pandemic. And so you realize you know how vast this problem is, right? And a large part of that is actually young people. So the data actually says that 36% of this are actually people in the sort of 18 to 25 kind of age bracket, right? And a lot of them being women. Now, if you're, for example, a youth brand, it could be a youth apparel brand. A lot of the youth apparel brands that I've worked on in the past, for example, can you be a part of a conversation like that? For sure, right? You can be a part of that because your target audience is youth, and therefore that narrative becomes very, very relevant for you. But again, it depends on the tonality. It depends on what is ultimately the sort of objective that you have, and which has to be absolutely removed from business objectives, like Smita said. I mean, I 100% agree. And it really is about, as a brand, whether you sound genuine or not. I mean, ultimately and fundamentally, it is about that. There is nothing else in that equation, really. It is about, as a brand, are you a genuine brand? Because if you're not, you I mean, you're going to be found out, you are going to be called out. So, for example, if you're an ice cream brand, and if you're saying something like, oh, are you feeling depressed, have an ice cream and you're going to feel better, please don't do things like that. I mean, it's ridiculous, and we have to absolutely stop doing communication like that. There still are, I mean, I don't want to name it, but brands of that nature putting out communication like that, which is just unhealthy. It's just unhealthy. And no, an ice cream will not fix depression, because if it was that easy, we would not have people suffering for over 2 decades, and for all their lives, kind of being suffering the illness. So it's really about, A, tonality, B, are you being genuine, right? So yeah, that would be my answer.
Sure, that was a really wonderful answer. Before I move on to my next question, I would like to tell the audience that if they have any question, they can drop it in the comment box on the Facebook Live, and I will ensure that our esteemed panelists do answer those questions. If by the time I am live and interviewing them, interacting with them, by the time if any question comes in, I can just ask them live here. Otherwise, we can definitely send you the answers by the panelists. So, Anuj, my next question is to you. That I generally see brands either going the celebrity route, or they onboard experts to talk about mental health. At times, they also create fictional content around it, or they get uh, doctors and all to speak on the topic. So, how can social media influencers help brands create relevant content on the topic and also amplify it? Is it more economical and effective route, or ends up being as expensive as celebrity-led content?
So I'm not the best person to answer this, to be honest. My limited understanding of this is that I think there are social media influencers. The whole culture of social media influencers is they have less of a myth around them, and they're essentially, most of them have come up by creating content from the ground up, day in, day out. And so there is a journey that their followers have seen them over years, typically. And so there is trust, inherent trust, in the messaging, so in the products they sell, and everything, right? So there is that relationship, which makes it beneficial for any partnership, right? So, when we speak to our 4 million people, we've been doing this for the last 7 years. So when, and we've got X amount of engagement organically on every post. So there is that commitment on a daily basis for our audience and our community to show up and engage with our content. That's true of every other social media influencer too. So many would be meaningful vehicles to put out messaging on these topics, because again, if you want to reach young people, and I can definitely attest to what Piali said. My apologies. Yeah, on the staggering volume of people suffering, because we speak to young people, and 36% almost seems like an underestimate. Everyone currently, as we speak, is so overwhelmed, so distressed, struggling with sleep, struggling with anxiety, struggling to even be on social media. So a lot of them have tuned out, because even social media is very hard. So yeah, is it economical? No, I think, I mean, you guys know better. I think social media influencers now cost a reasonable chunk of money, but I think they are definitely better vehicles than your actor celebrities, unless they're speaking from a voice of truth, like say a Deepika or someone who's personally affected. I definitely don't want a Karthik Aryan to be talking about mental health, versus say someone who, who's far more grounded, real, has has the credentials to speak about it. So, say someone like a Nikhil Taneja who runs Yuva, or Prajakta Kohli who, has been on many foundations, who genuinely speaks to the youth at a very intimate level. I mean, those are far more meaningful partnerships than going down the Bollywood actor or cricketer kind of route, especially for mental health, because I think people now, young India smells the bullshit very quickly. So you can't fool them. You can't, like, we heard, you can't say ice cream khao theek ho jaoge. That won't work. So I think it's the wiser choice. Whether it's economical or no, I'm not too sure. I don't think it's going to, cost will not be drastically different if you partner with a reasonably large number of influencers, which you must to spread the message far and wide.
Sure, sure. So that brings me to the end of this interaction, and I would like to extend my gratitude to the panelists for sparing some time and sharing amazing insights on the topic as sensitive as mental health. And I have seen a lot of case studies around the topic, but there wasn't much information available on the right way to do it. And for our audience, I promise that we'll continue with the endeavor to make content conversation as one of the world's best chat shows in the field of content marketing. And this is just the beginning and a long way to go. I wish for everybody's safety, well-being, stay at home, try to at least try to stay at home and spend as much as time with the family. Signing off, your host Akanksha Shrivastava. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Akansha. This was great fun.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody else on the panel. Good conversation.